This is Nick Elliott, a young journalist moving to California. He's looking for houses or apartments to rent, but none of the properties he's visited seem to interest him. He heads to the city's suburbs as his last option. He gets distracted looking at the map and almost runs over a young woman rollerblading. She stares at him and turns her back as if nothing happened. He arrives at the property, a guest house run by a family. His hostess asks several questions, but Nick is immediately charmed when he sees his house. In the background, a piano plays.
You're welcome to help yourself to anything you'd like.
The hostess explains that she is her daughter, Adrian. Nick says he's already met her. She's the same girl from the near accident. Nick then goes upstairs to see the house and seems very pleased. Later, Adrian observes Nick's house from the outside when her friend Cheyenne arrives. Adrian asks Cheyenne a favor. She should go check out Nick and find out what he's like. Cheyenne agrees. When she arrives, Nick tries to get intimate with her, and Cheyenne becomes very shy and leaves quickly. Nick becomes suspicious and looks through the window, and Adrian hides. Cheyenne reports to Adrian that Nick is a nice guy. The next day, Nick goes to his first day of work. The secretary tells him he's late. He enters the somewhat chaotic room and sits next to a beautiful woman named Amy Maddock. She greets him with desire. The meeting begins, and Michael, the editor-in-chief, intimidates Elliot, praising him and then asking about Robert Levansky, a famous con man. He gives Nick the job of investigating Robert's case, and everyone knows it's a horrible job, but as is customary in every corporation, the newcomers always get the worst jobs. Later, while Nick is sanding his car, Adrian approaches and tries to strike up a conversation. Nick asks what she does, and she says she's a jockey apprentice, but the girl's looks disconcert Nick. The next day, Nick makes an important contact for the Levansky case, a certain Mario Analdi. During the night, Nick writes about the Levansky case, and Adrian appears at his door.
Very attractive.
She is curious and wants to know about the subject. Nick then begins to explain the entire Levansky case to her, but Adrian seems much more interested in him than in the case itself. This makes Nick somewhat apprehensive because Adrian is only 14 years old and her behavior doesn't match that fact.
You sure you're only 14?
Almost 15.
The next day, Nick arrives home from his morning run. While he's showering, he notices someone has entered his house. It's Adrian. She sees a picture of Nick as a boy with his grandfather. She asks for the picture as a gift, but Nick refuses. The girl then tries to peek through the bathroom door, and when Nick comes out, she gives him a present, a pair of glasses. He thanks her and rushes off to work. Adrian then invites him to her birthday party. Nick says he'll try to go, but he has a lot of work and can't guarantee anything. The next day, Nick prints his work but notices something is wrong. A sudden meeting with Michael doesn't give him time to do anything. But what Michael says surprises him. He says that he and Maddock won the newspaper cover, and Nick's text is practically perfect.
Not only is your research excellent, but your text is clean, concise, even has some style.
That night, Nick is at home and hears the buzz from Adrian's party. He gets ready to go since his text was approved and he has nothing else to do. Arriving there, he meets Cliff Forrester, Adrian's father. The couple is very friendly, but they are soon distracted by other guests, and Nick is drawn to the sound of the piano. He discovers Adrian playing masterfully Piano Study No. 3 in A-flat major, La Campanella by Franz Liszt. She finishes playing and goes to the balcony. Nick follows her. She confesses that she wrote Nick's article, impressing him. Then she criticizes Nick's writing style and invites him for a ride in Nick's car. Under pressure, Nick accepts. They go to an old lighthouse just to talk, and Adrian starts talking about the difficulties of being a rich girl from the suburbs and how hard it is for her to make friends.
You don't know how hard it is for me to make friends. I mean, my parents made me skip 2 grades in school. It's like everybody thinks I'm some kind of freak or something.
Nick feels sorry for her and tries to make her laugh. Adrian then kisses him. In a lapse of responsibility, Nick hesitates and asks her to stop, and they go back home. Arriving home, Nick drinks some of his Russian water while Adrian is put to bed by her mother like an innocent little blonde girl, but she's plotting something. In the morning, Nick is working at home when he sees Adrian in a bikini sunbathing, which shocks him. A few hours later, Adrian sees Nick carrying a box and runs to greet him, but notices he's accompanied by Amy Maddock. This leaves Adrian with a vengeful and psychotic look. Later at a company party, Michael shows up to tell Nick that Robert Levonsky has accepted an interview with Nick, which is a great victory. Michael even brought a French wine as a gift. Maddock then goes to get kindling for the barbecue, but she comes across a wasp nest. Then Adrian appears, scaring her. Adrian starts intimidating Maddock, making her uncomfortable. She accompanies Maddock, and they both see Nick talking to another woman. Adrian provokes Maddock once again, saying that the girl is pretty and that Maddock has small breasts. Later, Maddock tells Nick that Adrian could become a problem and is obsessed with Nick. Nick disagrees until he hears a message from Adrian on the answering machine.
Hi, it's me. Just thinking of you. God, that sounds corny. Oh well, call me when you get a sec, okay? Oh, say hi to Amy. Bye.
But even then, Nick disclaims any blame. The next day, while at work, Nick receives a call from Adrian and she says suggestive things.
Got my period. Definitely not pregnant.
He then realizes that the girl stole his precious photo with his grandfather. He hangs up and starts thinking, since he can't prove it was the girl who took the photo. He then goes to the Forest mansion, but no one answers. Even so, he forces his way in. He searches a bit and then goes upstairs to Adrian's room. He searches the room and finds a pillow with his initials. Suddenly, he hears a noise and hides in the closet. It's Adrian. She's getting ready for a bath. She starts undressing and looks at the closet as if she knows Nick is there. She leaves the room and Nick sees his chance to escape. He carefully goes down the stairs, but at the door he finds Cliff. He tells Cliff that he came to return a book to Adrian. Cliff is suspicious but asks Nick for help carrying the groceries. Cliff then takes Nick to the attic where he keeps a mini amusement park made for Adrian. Cliff gets it working but says, disappointed, that Adrian never showed any interest in the park. In an unpleasant atmosphere, they start talking about Adrian and her beauty until she appears. Nick hurries to leave, but Cliff asks Adrian about the borrowed book. Nick breaks out in a cold sweat, but Adrian confirms and thanks him for returning the book with an air of superiority. The next day, he sees Adrian on the garden swing. He approaches her and begins to explain how a relationship between the two would be crazy. Adrian, however, treats him with irony and perversions, which irritates Nick and makes him be more blunt. The girl simply ignores him and acts as if she won an argument. The following morning, Nick shows Maddock his refurbished car. Together, they remove the sheet covering it, but the bodywork is scratched with the phrase, "cocksucker." Nick then goes to the Forest's house, saying he suspects Adrian scratched his car but has no proof. Adrian simply denies the story, leaving Nick defenseless. Minutes later, Cheyenne approaches Nick and says she wants to talk to him in the woods before nightfall. She runs off, but Adrian watches everything from the window. Later at the jockey club, Adrian offers to saddle Cheyenne's horse. During training, Cheyenne's saddle comes loose, she falls and injures her arm.
Cheyenne, are you okay?
As agreed, Nick waits for Cheyenne in the woods, but Adrian appears instead. She sarcastically says that Cheyenne fell off her horse and is in the hospital. She threatens Nick, telling him to be more careful. Days later, Nick arrives home with Maddock, and Adrian doesn't miss the opportunity to provoke his rival.
Yeah, the makeout place. You should definitely go. Nick took me. Maybe he'd take you sometime.
At work, Nick is in a meeting with his team where he will present his script to Michael. A secretary then calls Nick aside. He says his files have disappeared. Nick panics and runs home, only to find all his files deleted. Desperate, he calls Maddock and asks her to distract Michael, saying he'll leave the house as soon as possible. He hangs up and finds the basement under the doormat. He goes down and sees a kind of ritual with candles and photos of himself taken by Adrian. He seals the basement entrance and restarts the entire process while Adrian frantically calls him, trying to blackmail him. He also calls a locksmith to change the locks on his house. He manages to finish the text and takes it to Michael. After work, he goes to rent another house far from the Forest mansion. He starts packing when Maddox arrives and gives him wine. They start talking, end up kissing, and sleeping together. Adrian feels very sad, and through a secret passage, she enters Nick's house and watches him. He wakes up, but she's already gone. In the morning, as Maddox is leaving Nick's house, Adrian arrives and starts provoking him, but Maddox. She says that she is just a child and that soon her crush on Nick will pass. Maddox leaves and leaves Adrian with a feeling of defeat and revenge. The next day, Maddox is at her house and goes to a separate room to develop her photos. She uses a chemical and turns on the ventilation. But someone outside locks the door and covers the ventilation. Inside, Maddox develops a strange photo and realizes that it is a photo of Adrian. Then a swarm of bees is placed in the ventilation. The bees begin to sting Maddox, and with her reflexes, she throws an object and breaks one of the windows. She faints soon after. Nick, at his house, receives the news from Michael that Amy had an accident. Adrian pretends to console him, but Nick is suspicious of her. But she invites Nick to her jockey event. He does not respond. Days later, she's at her event, but when Adrian looks at the stands, she doesn't find Nick. Furious, she goes looking for him and finds him at his company event. She approaches him, but Nick tells her to leave. She slaps him, but Nick grabs her arm and takes her to a secluded place. Adrian starts yelling, making everyone think he's abusing her. Nick leaves and goes straight to the house he had agreed to rent, but the old woman says she won't rent to drug dealers. Adrian lied to her. The old woman's son then kicks Nick out of the house. When Nick returns home, the police are waiting for him. They immediately arrest him for abusing a minor. When Cliff sees him, he tries to hit him, believing his daughter is an innocent girl. At the police station, everyone believes Adrian's testimony, but Nick is discredited by the police, and the sheriff mentions that they found semen inside Adrian. Later, he meets with Michael and says that she may have gotten the semen from a condom in the trash, but Michael, she doesn't believe him either. While the investigations continue, Nick returns home and begins to move, but someone is watching him. We discover it's Cheyenne. She tells him that Adrian had a crush on a guy named Rick and he died of poisoning.
She knows it was Adrian, but she has no way to prove it. She tells Nick about Adrian's diary and that she writes everything in it, but Nick dismisses the possibility, saying that the police blindly believe her. He escorts Cheyenne to the door, but Cheyenne doesn't leave. She takes a secret key and enters the Forest house. Nick hears a piano and runs, worried about Cheyenne. He enters the house, but it was just a music box. He goes upstairs looking for Cheyenne, but upon entering Adrian's room, he discovers an altar with candles bearing his name and an apology. Adrian appears as if he's escaped from an asylum. She begins to apologize, but Nick only cares about Cheyenne. This irritates Adrian, and she starts hitting him with a baseball bat. She knocks him down the stairs, even though it's hard to believe that a skinny girl could win a strength contest with an adult man, but let's try. Adrian goes downstairs making excuses for what she just did. She's about to kill Nick when Cliff arrives. He tries to open the door but can't. She runs to the attic and Nick goes after her. Cliff finally enters and Nick is in the attic yelling for Cheyenne. The carousel lights up and Nick sees Cheyenne tied up. He tries to free her, but Adrian hits him with a baseball bat. Cliff desperately tries to reach the attic doorknob, but he is too short. In a colossal effort, Cliff enters the attic and jumps on Nick. Adrian, however, hits her own father and knocks him out. She runs towards Nick, who, with a jab, knocks Adrian down, freeing herself from the curse of the love-struck teenager. Weeks later, Adrian is in a mental hospital when a doctor enters. He praises Adrian for her progress and says that she will soon return home. Meanwhile, at her new home, Maddox wakes Nick and says she has some letters for him. He is startled and realizes they are letters from Adrian. At the clinic, a nurse conducts. Adrian goes to her room. She picks up a photo of her doctor and his wife. This man will be her next victim. That's the end. If you've made it to the end, comment, "My girlfriend has borderline personality disorder," subscribe, and hit the like button to help an unemployed person. Until next time, bye-bye.